طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا. Welcome everyone to today's class. Our 10th lecture of this course, the Arabic Conversational course. Let me just quickly post the link in the channel so that those that want to join can join the stream. طيب. Today inshallah ta'ala we are going to first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over the exam results inshallah. Then we might cover one or two small concepts related to what we've done last time in terms of grammar. And then inshallah we'll go to the workshop بإذن الله الكريم. Okay? طيب, let's start. طيب, Bismillah. Regarding the assignments, I've seen there's a lot of assignments, mashallah, that you've completed. Did you get a chance to return them and mark them today? Inshallah, they'll all be marked and returned by tomorrow. I marked a few assignments here and there, but there's still a lot remaining, inshallah. The midterm exam. Bismillah. Alhamdulillah, I told you last time already that generally speaking, students have done very, very well. Allahumma barik. All of you, well done. But the purpose of this is to go over the answers and to point out any common mistakes that people made. Okay, so that we can all learn from it, inshallah. Like we said last time, every mistake is a learning opportunity. That's what it is. So the first section of the exam was about vocabulary, al-mufradat. And the first question said, ضع كل كلمة في المربع المناسب. ضع كل كلمة في المربع المناسب. And I just want to show you quickly. Let's launch the exam because I want to show you how to get hold of or how to see the English translation of the question, because sometimes you might find it difficult to understand the question itself. Okay, so what you do on that kind of occasion, 1 minute. So this is obviously the first question. You can see the timer there, 1 hour and 30 minutes. Sometimes the timer is like this, it doesn't want to distract you, so you can click on it to see how much time there's left. Okay, and in order to find the translation of the question, you click here, show hint, and then it gives you the translation and an explanation that you need, which is not normally something the book gives you, but it's something that we afford you as a student, because there's no point trying to answer a question that you don't even understand. Right, so it says drag each word to the most suitable box. Okay, and mashallah, generally speaking, most of you have done well. We had 4 categories: usra, family; athath, furniture; adad, number; and ayyam al-usbu', days of the week. Okay, there was, however, a major problem when it comes to numbers and days of the week. A lot of confusion there, and I'll be honest, I put those two together on purpose, okay, because I know there's a lot of overlap and they can get quite confusing. So we have, for example, when it comes to numbers versus days, the numbers are wahid and ithnan. So those two in green, nobody got wrong. Wahid and ithnan, nobody got wrong. Okay, and we also have a sept. Few people got sept wrong, not many people. And al-ahad. Okay, so wahid means one, al-ahad means Sunday. Now obviously, if you pay attention, you'll find that the days of the week are derived from the Arabic numbers. So يوم الأحد i.e. واحد, يوم الاثنين i.e. اثنان, يوم الثلاثاء very similar to ثلاثة, يوم الأربعاء very similar to أربعة, يوم الخميس very similar to خمسة, يوم الجمعة is unique, and يوم السبت, which is close to سبعة if you like. سبت, سبعة, there's some overlap there. So ثلاثة and ثلاثاء, most of you got it mixed up. Either you made ثلاثة a day of the week, or you made الثلاثاء a number. الثلاثاء is not a number. Likewise, الخامس and الخميس. I know they sound very similar, okay, but you have to differentiate between them. You can't say, for example, أذهب إلى العمل يوم الخامس. Okay, neither can you say, for example, أسكن في الدور الخميس. Okay, أسكن في الدور الخامس, the fifth floor. Okay, and أذهب إلى العمل يوم الخميس, Thursday. And الرابع, obviously a lot of you mixed it up with الأربعاء. Okay, so those were the mistakes. There is no shortcut. You just have to recognize these words. ثلاثة, ثلاثاء. You have to just recognize and memorize the differences there. Okay, that's the first question. The second question was about pairing each word with its opposite. Okay, which alhamdulillah most of you got right. 99% of you got it right. I think just one student made one tiny mistake with him paired two wrong words. Okay, so I don't need to explain anything when it comes to that question. And now while I'm explaining and going over the questions, if you have a question or if it's not clear, tell me, because I haven't given detailed feedback to every student when returning the exam. I've left it to this lecture. And if it helps, what you can do is, in case you forgot your answers, just go to your email where it says that your midterm exam has been returned, and then you'll find a PDF attachment of your results, and then just open that PDF. Maybe I should have told you to do that before lesson, right? But I was running late, and I apologize, by the way, for being late. I just had a funny situation. You know the way that the way you park your car in one place every single day, and then one day you decide to park somewhere else. You know what happened. I went to the old place, and that was an expensive mistake. At the university, car parks are far away from the library, so I had to walk an extra 10 minutes to get to my car. That's why I was late, so I apologize for that. طيب. So you can fire up that PDF, you can open that PDF if you go to your email, so that you remember your answers. طيب. The third question was about grammar, and obviously the grammar section, as we showed last time, is where most of the mistakes happened. As you see here, if we go to the questions, we can see al-mufradat. You see that's 94%, 99% correct. But when you go to the nahaw, the first question is the 93%, which is good. But the second question, a lot of mistakes. Only 56% of you got full marks on that one, got it right. Okay? طيب. So the third question is easy. Fill in the blank with a suitable word. Okay? Now, we're going to go over some of the mistakes, learning opportunities, and show you why it's wrong. Okay? So, Khalid says, متى تستيقظ? He says that to Ammar. Obviously, this was the blank. You'll find that the word that is in the blue word is the blank. Okay? So we have Khalid says, متى تستيقظ? So what's the mistake that people made? Some people, they said متى, but they spelled it with a ya. Now if you see things in orange, that means I gave them the mark, but I just commented on their spelling mistake. So I didn't deduct any points for spelling mistakes. But like we said many times before, there's a major difference between alif maqsoora and the ya. So متى is with alif maqsoora, alif, متى, we stretch the fatha. Whereas ya would be matay or something, matay or mati, okay, which obviously is not an Arabic word. Some of you wrote ما تستيقظ. no. Ma does not enter upon verbs. Ma doesn't come before verbs. Unless it's for negation, but we'll do that another time. Alright? But the ma, which is the interrogative word, the question word of ma, does not come before verbs. Okay? Instead, the word that does come before verbs is ماذا. But ماذا تستيقظ doesn't make sense. What do you wake up does not make sense. Because when you ask someone about their waking up, you want to know when they woke up. Because waking up happens at a specific time of the day. So, what you woke up doesn't make sense. أستيقظ عند الفجر. خالد أين تصلي الفجر? I didn't see any mistakes there. Alhamdulillah. عمار أصلي الفجر في المسجد. Okay? How would you know if this is أين and not متى تصلي? Obviously because of the answer في المسجد, which is a place. What word do we use to ask about places? أين. Okay, alhamdulillah, most of you got that right. If not all of you actually got that right, so no point explaining that. Khalid said هل تنام بعد الفجر. Now one person said أتنام بعد الفجر, which is correct. Okay, so أتنام, هل تنام is both correct. Okay, أتنام بعد الفجر, هل تنام بعد الفجر. هل and generally speaking have the same meaning. So one person said سوف تنام بعد الفجر. لا. Why? Because سوف is not a question word. You can see the question mark at the end. One might argue, but Ustad, sometimes we do say something like, are you going to sleep after Fajr? Like, you know, with the intonation. True. And it's hard for me to tell the intonation when things are written like that. So for that reason, whoever wrote Sofa, I gave you the mark. Okay, I gave you the mark because, you know, it's understandable. Sofa tanamu ba'd al-fajr. If you ask it like that, it's a question. But if you say, Sofa tanamu ba'd al-fajr, then that's not a question. Okay? So that goes back to the intonation that you use. Okay? لا أنام بعد الفجر. Khalid said ماذا تعمل في الصباح. ماذا was the blank. Okay, some of you said ما تعمل. Wrong. Okay, so let's start with the questions that were not wrong. ماذا, that's a misspelling, missing the alif. I gave the mark. Another person said أنت. أنت تعمل في الصباح. I think it's the same person that wrote here سوف تنام بعد الفجر, which is okay. Like I said again, with the intonation, أنت تعمل في الصباح, it could be a question, so I allowed it. Then we have ماذا تعمل في الصباح. Sorry, ما تعمل في الصباح. Wrong. Why? Because ما does not enter upon verbs. Remember that. As a question word. As an interrogative noun. هل تعمل في الصباح. هل تعمل في الصباح. I mark that as wrong. Who knows why? Why is that wrong? I want you to think. هل تعمل في الصباح is the wrong. هل is the wrong word to put here. Who knows why? You can answer in the chat if you know the answer. Why is هل تنام بعد الفجر wrong? Why did I mark that wrong? Yeah, I was being very generous so far. But this I couldn't mark as correct. Why? Anyone? طيب. It's not a closed-ended question. It wouldn't make sense. Well, ماذا is not a closed-ended question, is it? Oh, you mean with hal would be wrong because it's a closed-ended question. Yes, true. It wouldn't make sense because the answer, that's the point I'm trying to make, which is this sentence is part of a dialogue. Yes, so even though هل تعمل في الصباح is a correct sentence by itself, it is wrong within the context. Because أقرأ القرآن is not a correct answer. It can't be a correct answer for هل تعمل في الصباح. Okay, because like you put it, جزاك الله خير, هل would turn it into a closed-ended question. So the answer would have to be نعم or لا. The answer can't be open-ended like أقرأ القرآن. So if the question هل تعمل في الصباح was correct, then the answer would have been نعم أعمل في الصباح or لا أعمل في الصباح. Okay? طيب ومتى تذهب إلى المدرسة؟ ومتى تذهب إلى المدرسة؟ One person wrote ومتى تذهب الساعة المدرسة. No, doesn't make sense. Okay, if you want to ask about the hour, you would say something like أي ساعة تذهب إلى المدرسة. You wouldn't say متى. Why? Because متى itself is a question about time. So it's redundant to use the word ساعة, which stands for time as well. You understand? Okay, so you can't say متى الساعة unless you mean when is the hour, which would be understood as the last hour. But you can't, if you say متى, you're asking about time already. The answer is going to have الساعة, but the question won't. أذهب الساعة السابعة. هل تذهب بالحافلة؟ هل تذهب, there was a mistake here. Somebody wrote هل يذهب بالحافلة, and I marked it wrong. Not because of the spelling mistake, the zai instead of the dhal. I can forgive that. Maybe he mistyped. The dhal and the zai are generally close on the keyboard. Or it's because maybe the person needs to work a bit more on their sound recognition, whereby za and dhal are two different sounds. But that's not why I marked it wrong. I marked it wrong because of the ya. That's a big grammatical mistake. هل يذهب بالحافلة? All of a sudden, you are now referring to a third person. There's no third person in this dialogue. This is a dialogue between Khalid and Ammar. That's it. There's no third person involved. So Khalid saying هل يذهب بالحافلة? Will he go by bus? Question is, who is he? Who is he talking about? Whilst he's addressing Ammar. لا, he's asking Ammar, the second person. So you have to use ta, تذهب. You can't say يذهب. طيب, that's it. Those were the mistakes and those were the answers. Any questions? Was that straightforward? Shall we go on to the next question that people got mainly wrong? A lot of mistakes on the next question. طيب, let's go to question number 4 then, which also comes under grammar. Now, first thing is that and I want to remind you, inshallah, for next time, what happened, but please, like I said, when typing your answers in Arabic, please do not write harakat. This causes me major issues because I have to then check every question, every answer separately, because the system doesn't group it together, because the system thinks that they are different answers when they are the same answer. So please, any questions, any answers that you put where you have to type, do not add harakat unless I ask for it. Unless I say, write the answer to this question whilst writing the last harakah, or write the answer to this question with full harakat. If I am testing you on your spelling or on a certain grammatical concept and I ask you to write harakat, you're excused. But for the rest, as a general rule, do not write the harakah. 30 of you, mashallah, have seen the message and over half of you still added a lot of harakat. Okay, so please don't do that going forward. And that's with everything. Anything that you're answering, that you're typing in Arabic, do not write harakat. As a matter of fact, why would you do it? Look, if you're going to play that game, fine. Write the harakat, and if you make a mistake in the harakat, I'll mark it wrong. Is that what you want? You don't want that. Just, they say, there's a famous saying in Arabic. They say, sakin taslam. Okay, give it sukoon, you'll be fine. Because if I actually looked at the way some of the students, they put the harakat, they would have had a lot of mistakes. Specifically when it comes to the last harakah, what grammar is about. They'll put a dhamma on the object, on the maf'ulun bihi, or a fatha on the fa'il, which is a mistake, but that's not what I'm assessing for. So I wouldn't deem their answer to be wrong because of that, because that's not what I'm assessing for. Okay, when it's time to assess for the harakat and for these alamat al-i'rab, then I will deduct marks, but now I won't. So unless you want me to deduct marks, do not put harakat. Okay? طيب. So this question said صحح الأخطاء النحوية في هذا النص. So I have embedded on purposely some mistakes in this piece of text. And it was your job to correct the grammatical mistakes in the text. Okay? I'm going to agree with you that this is fairly a very difficult question. Okay, I don't know if you are aware, those of you that might have a background in education, learning objectives are of different levels. Okay, they call it the Bloom's taxonomy. One of the highest levels when it comes to learning objectives that your student can reach is evaluation, where they evaluate something, if it's right or wrong, and then correct it. That's a very high level of competency. Okay, so you have recall, memorization, that's the easiest, that's the lowest on that taxonomy. Then you have understanding, and so on and so forth. The second highest level is evaluation. Okay, so that's why this question was so difficult, because now you had to evaluate and correct. This is normally a teacher level. صح? So I'm very proud of those of you that have done this, they've done good on this question. And those of you that made a lot of mistakes, don't beat yourself. This question was the difficult question in the exam. And every exam, as a teacher, you know that every exam has to have a difficult question to set the students apart. There's no point giving an exam with all easy questions and all the students get full marks, because you're not going to know which students put in the hard work and are ahead of others and which students need more work. You're not going to know if the exam is doesn't challenge everyone to their limit. طيب, so the first question, the first mistake was يستيقظ فاطمة مبكرة. So obviously the first is the mistake and this is the correction. Okay, so the text said يستيقظ فاطمة مبكرة عند الفجر. So يستيقظ, it's wrong. It's meant to be تستيقظ. And there are some mistakes that are not mistakes. In other words, there are places where students said, this is wrong, Ustad, when it actually wasn't wrong. Okay, I'll cover them at the end. I'll talk about them at the end. Now let's just talk about the mistakes that I embedded into the question that some of you didn't pick up on. Okay, so some of you didn't pick up on the fact that تستيقظ is the correct one because فاطمة is feminine. تستيقظ فاطمة مبكرة عند الفجر وتصلي الفجر في البيت. فاطمة لا تنام بعد صلاة الفجر. هو تقرأ القرآن. That's why I put there. Of course it's here. Okay, of course it's here. تذهب إلى المدرسة بالحافلة الساعة 7 يوم العطلة. تستيقظ مبكرا or مبكرة. And I've put two alternative answers, one with the shadda, one without the shadda. But in the future, I'm just warning you, in the future, this is going to be the only acceptable answer. You have to put the shaddas where they belong. I've told you many times before, even though I don't want you to add harakat, that doesn't mean you shouldn't add shadda. Shadda is different from your fathas and kasras and dhammas. Shadda is an actual letter that is hidden inside of that letter. It's basically that shadda stands for another consonant. It doesn't stand for fatha kasra, it stands for another consonant. So mubakkiratan, it's mim ba, two kafs, and then a ra, and then a ta marbuta. Okay, so leaving out the shadda would change the meaning. Would change the meaning. Okay, so you have to be careful there. Okay, so for example, the two verbs darasa, which means to study, and the verb darrasa, which means to teach. What's the difference? The difference is the ra, the shadda on the ra. You see, you have darasa, to learn, to study, darrasa, to teach. The only difference is the shadda. So imagine you don't put the shadda, I can't give you the mark. Okay, طيب, so keep that in mind. This time I let it slide. I've added both as correct answers. So mubakkiran, the question said تستيقظ مبكرا. This is wrong. Why? Because Fatima is feminine. We are talking about Fatima, aren't we? تستيقظ, she wakes up, right? مبكرا is an adjective, صح? It's a sifa. So there has to be agreement. We have to use the feminine form by adding a ta marbuta. تستيقظ مبكرة. تستيقظ مبكرة, not تستيقظ مبكرا. Okay? تستيقظ مبكرة أيضا. And this particular one, had you paid attention, some of you, not all of you, some of you, had you paid attention, you would have found that the answer is already here. I've already done that here for you at ta marbuta. So that's why some of the students, what did they do? They considered this to be wrong. so that they can keep this one as correct. Okay, no, that's what the test is about. So they mark this one as mubakkiran, so that they're both in agreement. Well, at least I commend them for realizing that they both have to be the same. Okay, having mubakkiratan up here and then mubakkiran up here and leaving it that way, then here I have to say, wait a minute, come on. If anything, you have to change one of the two. Okay, how can it here be Fatima to mubakkiratan and here tastayqidu mubakkiran? How? It's still talking about Fatima. يوم الجمعة في الصباح تقرأ صحيفة أو كتابا أصلي الجمعة. I changed it from from third person feminine to first person. How can I say أصلي? This whole text was about Fatima. How can I turn it all of a sudden into first person? So this was clearly wrong. أصلي الجمعة. You're not talking about yourself. We're talking about Fatima. أصلي الجمعة إلى. That was the question. إلى المسجد. لا, we don't pray to a masjid. Apart from Masjid al-Haram. Apart from Mecca, the Masjid of the Kaaba, we pray to that masjid. Fine. أصلي إلى المسجد الحرام. That's my qibla. Fine. There's no other masjid that we pray to other than the Masjid al-Haram. All other mosques, we pray in them. Okay. أصلي الجمعة في المسجد الكبير. Not إلى المسجد الكبير. That would be a problem if you make your qibla another masjid other than Masjid al-Haram. So أصلي الجمعة في المسجد الكبيرة. Another mistake. الكبيرة وتاء مربوطة. لا. في المسجد الكبير. Masjid is masculine. So the sifa also has to be masculine. في المسجد الكبير. I'm sure a lot of you are kicking yourselves being like, how did I miss out on that? How did I not notice that? But again, this is the nature of learning. Okay? Don't think that you know something just because you've been exposed to it and you think you understand it. La. You only realize up to what level you truly know something until you get tested. Until you implement it. Before that, you suffer from something called the exposure effect, which is when you're exposed to knowledge and you think that you know it just because you come across it. This is an actual phenomenon, real phenomenon that is known. It's called the exposure effect. Most students, they suffer from this. They think they know something just because they heard about it or they watched a video on it. La. Okay? You only know something once you start practicing. Deliberate practice. You make mistakes. You come across learning opportunities. You take those learning opportunities by the scruff of the neck. You benefit from them. And you grow. That's the only way that you learn. Mistakes that are not mistakes, that some of the students consider to be a mistake. One of them I've already mentioned, which is the agreement between mubakkiratan, Fatima, and mubakkiran. So some students said, wait a minute, this is wrong. Fatima to mubakkiran, la. Sorry, Fatima to mubakkiratan, they said la. It should be mubakkiran, so they corrected it, which is not the case. Another one is adding an alif lam to a word that is mudaf. I've said this many times. Mudaf ilayh, the first word never takes alif lam. So this student corrected وَتُصَلِّ الْفَجْرَ فِي الْبَيْتِ, which there's nothing to be corrected there. That's correct. But perhaps he wanted to say تُصَلِّ الْفَجْرَ فِي بَيْتِهَا, which is okay. They're both correct. I mean, you can say تُصَلِّ الْفَجْرَ فِي الْبَيْتِ, she prays Fajr in the house or at home. Or you can say she prays Fajr at her house. It's both the same meaning. Al-Bayt, we know we're talking about her house. No problem. Had this student corrected it without adding the alif lam, I would have given him the mark. I would have said, وَتُصَلِّ الْفَجْرِ فِي بَيْتِهَا. Okay, you tried to correct something that's not really wrong, but at least you didn't make a mistake, fine. But this student answered and said, وَتُصَلِّ الْفَجْرَ فِي الْبَيْتِهَا. No, hold on, that's wrong. That's wrong. You can't have al-baytiha. Al-baytiha is wrong. Why? Because al-baytiha is what? Is mudaf ilayh. Mudaf can never have an alif lam. Please, this is one of the most common mistakes that students make. Wallahi, it is so common you can't imagine. So another student did answer وَتُصَلِّ الْفَجْرَ فِي بَيْتِهَا, and I gave him or her the mark. Okay? And you know why? Because they didn't add an alif lam. Another mistake, that wasn't a mistake, is that some of you tried to correct the harakat. I did not assess you in harakat. Alright? That wasn't the purpose. So some of you tried to correct them. mainly by adding dhammas. Okay, and well, and they didn't make the correction, would be fine. But when you make a correction and your correction is wrong, I'm sorry, but you're gonna lose the mark. So, for example, you have تقرأ القرآن. Okay, Quran is what? Quran is the مفعول به, it's the object. So when you put a dhamma on the Quran, who is reading now? Tell me. Billahi alaykum. The sentence تقرأ القرآن. Okay, if we ignore the disagreement between the gender, because تقرأ is feminine, Al-Quran is masculine. If we ignore that, if we say, for example, يقرأ القرآن, who's doing the reading? Who's the fa'il? That verb to read, where's the verb's subject? Who's the fa'il? Who's the one that is doing the reading? The Quran. The Quran itself is reading. It doesn't make sense. Okay, and this is the importance of nahu. This is the importance of grammar. If you say to someone, يقرأ القرآن, he's going to say to you, what? When did you hear the Quran read? You know? And تذهب إلى المدرسة بالحافلة الساعة. لا. It's الساعة. Okay? It is it's not الساعة. Okay? And then we have السابعة. Well, at least I can commend the student for keeping the agreement there between السابعة, which is the صفة, and الساعة, which is the موصوف. I can commend that. I'm not sure if I gave him the mark. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. But this one, maybe I should have given him the mark. I hope I did. طيب, because even though it's wrong, he wouldn't know why it's wrong. Look, if you make a mistake, you try to correct something, when it's something we've already covered, I have to deduct a mark. So تقرأ القرآن, I have to deduct a mark. But this one, why is ساعة with a fatha? We haven't done that yet. Okay, this is called ظرف. We haven't done that yet. So I would allow that. Okay? طيب, I think there's a question. We have a question. Let me just finish off these three, and then we'll come to the question, inshallah ta'ala. حرف الجر is followed by kasrah. Okay, so we have a student that kept on writing في يوم. في يوم. So the question is يوم. The answer normally was يوم الجمعة في الصباح. Friday in the morning, or on Friday in the morning. Now this student thought that في has to be added, which is not really the case. You don't have to add في. يوم الجمعة means Friday in the morning. You don't have to say on Friday. I can say Friday in the morning she reads a journal or a book. Or I can say on Friday, or on Friday morning, on Friday I can add the particle, the harf al-jar. I can do that. But if I don't, it's still correct in English and Arabic. But no problem. You wanted to write fi. No problem. But you have to add a kasrah on the yawm now. You have to say fi yawmi. You can't say fi yawmu. And I think we've done that. We've done prepositions, we've done huruf al-jar, and they should be followed by the word that follows it should have a kasrah. So for that, maybe that's probably the reason why I deducted the mark over here. Because if you're gonna make a correction, make a correction. If it's a wrong correction, I will allow it unless it's something we've covered. Okay? ظرف doesn't need harf al-jar. Okay? And if you're going to add it, then it needs to be followed by kasrah. So for example here, تذهب إلى المدرسة بالحافلة في الساعة السابعة. Now this is what we call ظرف. It has a fatha because the fi is embedded, it's hidden. That's the reason why it's called ظرف. That's why it has fatha. We haven't done that yet. But nevertheless, if you're gonna add fi and you feel like it has to be في الساعة because this action is taking place in that container of time, which is 7 o'clock, then at least you have to make ساعتي with a kasrah and سابعتي with a kasrah. Okay? What do you think, everyone? That question, just over 50% of you got it right. ما رأيكم? Are there any questions? Was I too harsh or was I lenient? Let me know. Someone asks here, you said that مبكرة was a صفة of Fatima, hence the agreement in gender. Can you explain why then there is no agreement in definiteness? I thought Fatima was definite, but مبكرة indefinite. Or have I totally misunderstood this? No, you haven't misunderstood this. Okay? It's correct. Okay? But when we say adjective, yes, there's two ways of looking at it. Sorry. There is something we call semantically, something we call grammatically. Okay? So, semantically, مبكرة, that word itself, مبكرة, as a word, in of itself, it's an adjective of someone. It's an adjective, that word itself. Okay? So, late, big, small, tall, these are adjectives. Those words themselves are classed to be adjectives. So that's what I mean by مبكرة is an adjective. I don't mean by, when I say it's an adjective, as in it's an adjective grammatically. Now you might ask, what's the difference? I'll tell you the difference. The difference is the difference between هذا الرجل طويل and هذا الرجل الطويل. Now هذا الرجل طويل, طويل is a predicate, okay, grammatically, okay. But if you look at the meaning semantically, and sorry, there's always an overlap between semantics and grammar when it comes to language, right? The actual meaning and grammatical function, there's going to be overlap, okay. So semantically, this man is tall. That's a description. So as a matter of fact, I think what we can do is we can differentiate between the two by calling one a description and another one an adjective, if you like. We can do that. So let's say مبكرة is a description of Fatima. Words are a description, yes, even if they're not adjectives grammatically, they still need to agree. Why? Because when you say مبكرا, that person that hears this word, he needs to know what this word relates back to. Are you talking about a man, a woman? Because he needs to go back in the text to try and find out who you have described as being late. Were you talking about Khalid or Fatima or yourself or someone else? He has to go back, okay, in the text, think back of the context, who we were talking about. So if you say مبكرة instead of مبكرة, he's going to look back and look for a masculine gender. Like مبكرا, okay, it has to be a man. Wait a minute, we never talked about a man. We were just talking about Fatima. Who's he referring to? Who was late? That's what's going to happen. That's the reason why we have agreement. Agreement between these words in terms of gender, number, declension, i'rab, يعني whatever فتحة كسر ضمة he has. All of this is for the sake of knowing who is being referred to, who we're talking about. Okay? So I hope that's clear. Okay? So when I said So when I said adjective, I actually meant as in is a description of Fatima, so there has to be agreement. But it's not an adjective grammatically. Okay? Grammatically, what is it, if I were to ask you? What is it grammatically? تستيقظ مبكرة. Okay? Grammatically, it's something we would call hal. We haven't done that yet. Okay? But basically, it's an adverb, if you like. How... Like it's explaining to you, it's kind of like telling you how she was when she woke up, okay? Or sort of her waking up, was it early or was it late, okay? طيب ممتاز. We have we've covered all this, haven't we? طيب, any questions? Okay, then let's go to the next one. Then we have the writing. Let me keep tabs on the time. I've got serious issues with time management. Type. We'll quickly go over this one. Writing. We had a picture prompt whereby you had to write a short sentence using the image as a prompt. I gave you this example, which is خالد يسكن في بيت كبير. So it looks like a fairly big house. So خالد يسكن في بيت كبير. Okay. The two pictures I gave you was this one. Okay. And I want you to spot the learning opportunity. الولد ينام في سرير. هو ينام بعد صلاة الفجر. خالد هو ينام للغرفة. الأولاد ناموا متأخرا. Okay? This one, it is الولد ينام على السرير. You don't sleep in a bed, sleep on a bed. طيب هو ينام بعد صلاة الفجر. This I've told you many times before. In English, in Arabic, we don't say the pronoun separately. The pronoun is already embedded in the verb. ينام بعد صلاة الفجر is enough. Okay, so we need to stop thinking in English, alright? We need to start thinking in Arabic, okay? ينام has an huwa embedded in it. We covered that last time. So you don't need to say huwa ينام. خالد هو ينام للغرفة. Of course, huwa is wrong again. And للغرفة is also wrong. لل means for. Instead, what he should have said is, he or she, خالد ينام في الغرفة. And الأولاد نام متأخرا. Now this is wrong. Why is it wrong? Because الأولاد is plural. نام is singular. There's no agreement here. It should have been الأولاد ناموا متأخرا. Okay? If she said, he or she, الولد ينام متأخر would be fine. Or الولد نام متأخرا. نام is obviously past tense. We haven't done that yet. But that's past tense. الولد نام متأخرا. That would have been correct. These are some of the variations that you have come across, that I've come across. I just want to show you. Why do I want to show you these variations? Just to see the creativity of the students, so you can take inspiration from it, from other people's work. So one person said, some of you talked about the fact that he is sleeping. Some of you talked about the fact that he's waking up. I would say he's sleeping, but it's fine. If you can see him waking up, no problem. Okay? ينام يستيقظ. Some of you had variations in terms of when it happened. Some they said يستيقظ متأخرا or ينام متأخرا. Some of you said ينام ويستيقظ بعد صلاة الفجر. Okay, so again, variations that you can put in the sentence. Some of you talked about the where. Where did they happen? Okay, all of these things are things to consider when you want to make a sentence. These are the extra details you can give. And with these extra details, you can make one massive sentence. You can even make a paragraph. And I'm going to show you that at the end when I show you a combination of all these different variations that you came with. Okay, so pay attention. So you find out how I combine them together. So متأخرا, some of you, when they talked about the when, they gave two whens. They gave the متأخرا, the fact that he wakes up late, في يوم العطلة, on holidays. So he doesn't wake up late every day, just when it's holiday. Again, added detail. I commend the student who done that. Ahsant. By prolonging the sentence, you are giving more meaning and substance to your sentence. Okay, I know some of you, you would have got away and got the full mark by just saying ينام على السرير, right? But the longer you make the sentence, I know it's taking a risk, it's taking on a risk definitely, but again, it's a learning opportunity for you. Okay, if you're correct, alhamdulillah, I'll pat you on the back, I'll say well done. If you get wrong, I'll correct you so you learn from your mistake. There's nothing to worry about. Where did he sleep? Another question. Some of you said على السرير. Some of you went one step further. على السرير الكبير. You see? أحسنت. Now he gave an adjective of the sarir itself. He slept on the big bed, not the small one. Okay? And then some of you added also في غرفة النوم. So not just where he slept, in which room. Where he slept as in on the bed, but also in which room. في غرفة النوم. And you could have said في غرفة الجلوس, whatever. Okay? Some of you put the question, expressed yourself by way of question and answer format, which was mashallah, beautiful, very creative. متى تستيقظ؟ أستيقظ عند الفجر. That was your answer. Well done. Some of you, instead of using a verbal sentence, and all of these are verbal sentences that we came across so far, ينام متأخرا, ينام على السرير, because they all start with a verb. Some of you put it as a nominal sentence. Some of you said الولد نائم. الولد نائم على السرير. Now look, it is the same thing. Okay? ينام الولد على السرير. الولد نائم على السرير. طبعا there are differences between the two sentences, different connotations. Alright? But they both give roughly the same meaning. Okay? ينام الولد على السرير and الولد نائم على السرير. Of course, you use both sentences in different situations, but that has to do with علم البلاغة, like we said yesterday. It has to do with the علم of rhetoric, where you know how to be eloquent and how to use the correct combination of words and the correct order of words. Okay? So, some of you turn into a nominal sentence. Now, let's try and combine all of this. And I wanted to give this as an exercise for you in class on WooClap, but you're gonna have to excuse me because time is not on our side today. So I'm just gonna show you whatever I came up with, okay? So this is how I combined all of your answers. متى ينام خالد؟ ينام بعد صلاة الفجر في غرفة النوم على السرير الكبير ويستيقظ متأخرا في يوم العطلة. You see how I've used your answers all together to make this sentence, or if you like, two sentences. They only use words that you've learned before. And I guarantee you, what you've done so far, up to Unit 4, you could write a book if you wanted to. Honestly. Might be a little bit boring, but it will be grammatically correct, right? As we have here in this sentence over here, okay? And this is what we want to do. We want you to be creative, to mix and match, okay? This is a skill in of itself. As you go along and you study, yes, your vocabulary bank will increase. Yes, the grammar rules at your disposal will be more. You'll be able to make different structures. You'll be able to use different sentences, sentence structures, fine. Okay? But nevertheless, the skill of being creative and adding extra detail, that is something you have to develop today. So you can implement it tomorrow when your vocabulary bank is much larger than it is. A lot of students, they have this problem whereby they've memorized tons of vocabulary. Yes, they've done many grammar books, but wallahi, they can't string one sentence together. Because they don't know where to start. They don't know how to be creative. They don't know these simple structures. You have to start simple. Once you start simple, then you can build up and go to more complex structures. But if you struggle with these simple structures, yes, there's no chance you're going to express yourself in long, complicated sentence structures. It's not going to happen. Okay, so we grow along the way, inshallah. Next question, same format. I'm going to show you a way for you to spot the learning opportunity. Then I'm going to show you the variations, and then I'm going to show you my combined version. خالد يشاهدة تلفاز. Now I don't know what يشاهدة is. We have مشاهدة, which is the verbal noun, the act of watching. And we have يشاهد, which is he is watching. But يشاهدة didn't come across that. This is wrong. It's a kind of like a mixture between the two. تلفاز should be التلفاز. Okay, يشاهد التلفاز. Okay. Well, one might argue, but Ustad, what if he wants to say he's watching a TV, any TV, without specifying which TV? I would say to you, okay, fine. But if that's the case, it should have an alif. Why? Because it's going to have a tanween. And tilfas is the maf'ulun bihi. It should have two fathas. Khalidun yushahidu tilfazan. And we know that two fathas always comes the alif. So even though he didn't write the harakat, any native Arab speaker would read this as tilfazun or tilfazin, not tilfazan. Why not tilfazan? Because he'll say to you the alif is missing. That's the importance of the alif. The alif denotes that there's a tanween over there, two fathas. Okay, and it really helps when it comes to reading books that don't have harakat. This alif is a lifesaver, because you with it, by way of it, you can differentiate between the subject and the object, the maf'ul bihi and the fa'il. That alif saves you a lot of times. Okay. Al-waladu mushahadatu tilfaz, same mistake, almost, in a sense that they use the verbal noun. La. You can't say the boy. I mean, this is such a literal translation. I mean, one might translate this as the boy is watching, because mushahada means watching, the act of watching. At-tilfaz, the TV. But in Arabic, it just doesn't work that way. Okay? Why does it work that way? Because that would mean al-waladu mushahada. It would mean the boy is watching, not the boy is doing the act of watching. It would mean he is the act of watching. It would be مبتدا خبر. واضح? Is understood? الولد مشاهدة. That would be مبتدا خبر. And I would say to you, there's no agreement here, you know. So that would be wrong. You could say الولد مشاهد, but that would be the boy is being watched, which is a different story altogether. أبني يشاهد تلفاز. Why do I say أبني? Because you put a hamza to القطع over here. I know that you mean ibni, But ibni has to be with hamzatul wasl. When you put hamzatul wasl over here, importance of the spelling, I will say ibni. Why will I say ibni? Because I will put a kasra on this noon over here, which would mean that the third letter or the second letter after hamzatul wasl will have the same haraka, kasra, kasra, ibni. But when you put a hamzatul qata' over there, you leave me with no space for giving you an excuse. I can't possibly say ibni anymore because you have put the hamzatul qata' over there, which is on top of the alif, which can only take a fatha or dhamma. So I have to say abni. If you had done this, then maybe ibni, I would say to you, I would still read ibni because the kasra is below the alif, but I would say to you it's wrong. It should be hamzatul wasl, not hamzatul qata', because ibn is a word that has only hamzatul wasl. Okay? So that was a mistake, but I didn't deduct a mark because spelling mistake. Amir, again, hamzatul qata', my dear brothers and sisters, really important. Okay? That, I don't know how to read that. Do I say Amir? Do I say Amir? Do I say whatever? I don't know what to say. So it has to be Amir. يشاهد التلفاز طاء, sound recognition. Ta and ta, two different letters. Ta and ta are two different letters. Now if the ta and ta were close to each other on the keyboard, I would have given you the excuse, maybe his finger slipped. La. World of difference. Ta is all the way there, ta is all the way there. So you chose to write a ta because you hear ta. You've been hearing tilfaz. Truth has to be said. That's what you've recognized. When you read the book and you hear me talking, you've been hearing tilfaz. So now when it comes to you writing it, you wrote tilfaz. So you have to work on the sound recognition. Do the sound recognition exercises on Google Classroom, that contrast between the ta and the ta. If you do that, inshallah, you become really good at that. You won't make a mistake, inshallah, next time between tilfaz and tilfaz. Alright? If a non-native Arab speaker would read this, he would say, what's a tilfaz? He wouldn't know. يشاهد الغلام الغاز في غرف الجلوس. Wallah, I don't know if the student here wanted to say التلفاز, which means TV, or they actually meant الغاز. الغاز means riddles. The boy is watching riddles in the living room. Or it could also mean al-ghaz, which means gas, but then without this extra alif over here. Nevertheless, I hope that's clear for those of you that made those mistakes. Obviously, all of this, I'm obviously correcting the mistakes anonymously. Nobody knows that you're the one that made mistakes. So, take it as constructive criticism for you to learn from. Everybody's learning from these mistakes. So please don't take anything to the heart, okay? Variations. What variations do we receive? Well, some of you talked about the where. Where did this act or action of watching happen? Some of you said على الأريكة. يشاهد الولد التلفاز على الأريكة أو في غرفة الجلوس. Or you could add both. على الأريكة في غرفة الجلوس if you wanted to. Some of you talked about how. Okay? he watches TV. Tell me something about his habit of watching TV or his watching of TV. Tell me something about it. كثيرا, a lot. Oh no, that's not good, is it? Alright. Some of you turned the sentence into a nominal sentence. Okay, instead of using a verb, you said ذلك التلفاز كبير. A nominal sentence, fine. You're not talking about the boy. Now you're just talking about the tilfaz. One of you looked at this picture and they're like, wow, look at that TV. What a big TV. ذلك التلفاز كبير. They didn't notice the little boy, I suppose. Okay? One of you said الولد يشاهد التلفاز. A nominal sentence. يشاهد الولد التلفاز. الولد يشاهد التلفاز is the same thing. One is verbal sentence, one is nominal sentence. Here we have مبتدأ الولد, and this is the khabar. So الولد, what about him? He's watching TV. That's the predicate. يشاهد الولد التلفاز. لا. يشاهد now is a verb. We now need two things. We need the subject, the fa'il, who is watching, and what's being watched, التلفاز. So now يشاهد الولد would be فاعل, التلفاز would be مفعول به. Okay? And some of you use the verbal noun مشاهدة. Okay? Can't remember which. Yeah, here الولد. No, some of you did use it in a correct way. مشاهدة. Okay? I think you said was something like يحب الولد يحب مشاهدة التلفاز. The boy loves watching TV. Which is, mashallah, a correct sentence. Alright, let's combine all of this. يشاهد الولد التلفاز الكبيرة. I suppose one of you used كبير as well. Yeah, تلفاز كبير. Okay. يشاهد الولد التلفاز الكبيرة. All of them are فتحة. مفعول به. This is an adjective. كثيرا. A lot. ويحب, and he loves, مشاهدته, watching it, i.e. the TV. So I used مشاهدة again. So here we have the يشاهد, the verb, and here we have the actual verbal noun. ويحب مشاهدته على الأريكة, on the sofa, في غرفة الجلوس, in the living room. Okay, so that's how I have combined all of your answers into one big paragraph. Okay, barakallahu feekum. The last question was about spelling. There's not much here to say other than musalla. Again, musalli. Some of you wrote a ya, wrong. Some of you wrote musalla, sin, mixing up between the two sounds, between the sin and the sad, wrong. Some of you wrote musala, adding an alif here, la, there's only alif at the end. Okay, and all of these also didn't add shadda as well, which I overlooked. I overlooked this time, but not next time. It's musalla with shadda. Some of you wrote musalla with what? With the alif, what we call alif mamduda. That's the standing alif, the tall alif. La, it should be alif maqsura, and it makes a big difference. Okay, we'll talk about that another time. Some of you wrote musallat with a ta marbuta at the end. La, it's not musallah, it's musalla. طيب, yes. Some of you wrote without hamzatul qata'. Has to have hamzatul qata', and many of you didn't write the shadda. يوم العطلة, someone wrote عطلاتي with an alif. La, there's no alif here. عطلتي, it's not long. And some of you wrote ukht without the alif, without the hamzatul qata'. Again, you have to use hamzatul qata'. Ukht is with hamzatul qata'. It makes a major difference. Believe me, makes a major difference. Okay. That's it. I already said how everyone done. All of you done really, really well, mashallah. The average score was 21.5 or 21.25 out of 23. How did you find the test? I would love to know. And there's no point finding a book clap now. Just write in the chat, inshallah. I didn't understand why the second one was wrong. Is there a different way to say the boy is watching TV? Alright, the second one. الولد مشاهدة التلفاز. Well, you can't say الولد مشاهدة. You can't. When you use the verbal noun in Arabic, that verbal noun is not going to be the subject of the verb. It's not possible. The verbal noun can be the object, i.e. الولد يحب مشاهدة التلفاز. The boy loves watching TV. Fine. Okay, but the is watching, you're going to have to use the verb. الولد يشاهد. You can't say مشاهدة. Because if you use مشاهدة, now the boy himself becomes the verbal noun. Is that clear? Okay. Okay. MashaAllah, one of you said easy. Yeah, I know it's easy, MashaAllah. You had full mark. Allahumma barik. How about the rest? How did you find the exam? Please give me constructive criticism. Be as honest as you need to be. Don't hold back. ما في مشكلة. Huh? That was the main thing I was going to cover today anyway, like I said. Maybe I'm just going to quickly go over what we're going to be doing in the workshops, so that you know what's coming up, inshallah. I was going to do a quizzed vocabulary competition, but I'm going to have to leave that out for now. Okay? So we're going to, obviously, in the workshop, we're going to be doing reading fluency, making sure that you can read the text properly and fluent. Pronunciation practice, using the minimal pairs, words that have only difference qaf and kaf, see how you recognize them. Make your own sentence using this list of words. Okay? So you can make your own sentences, inshallah. I was hoping to do some in live class as well by using vocab, but there's no time. So we have person, these are people, adjectives that you can use to describe them. Or you can also use the adjectives to describe the food or drinks. We have the verbs from this unit. يجلس يأكل يشرب يطلب. We have categories. طعام شراب لحم فاكهة. These are categories, i.e. different foods, they belong in one of these categories. So you can say, for example, ماذا تفضل I should have added as a verb تفضل. Yeah, should have added that. You could say ماذا تفضل من الطعام. ماذا تفضل من الشراب. That's what I mean by category. Okay? You can't say ماذا تفضل من السمك. Maybe you can. Salmon could be a category as well. If we talk about different types of fish. Then we have drinks, شاء, ماء, حليب, قهوة. Then we have meal or different times of the day, صباح, فجر, فطور, غداء, عشاء, and so on and so forth. You make your own sentence, inshallah. The other one that we have is speaking prompts. Okay? You just look at the speaking prompts and you have a conversation with one of your classmates, inshallah, and you can use the speaking prompts to push you in the right direction so that you know what to talk about. You can ask about each other's preferences for food and drink, for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. You can ask about each other's weight. Yes, I know that might be inappropriate in the Western culture. But if you want to do that, you can say that, ma waznuk or ma waznuki. And again, you don't have to answer with your real weight, okay? This is just practice. Just the way that sometimes, we use different genders and we make up names and countries to practice for learning purposes. You can do the same thing here. You don't feel obliged to say your real weight. Ordering food and drink, ask someone what they would like to order. State your preferences when it comes to the food or drink you would like. Express that you're hungry or state what you want to eat. Like you can say أنا جوعان أريد السمكة والسلطة or whatever, like we saw in the dialogue. Prohibition and negation. This one is very important. Okay, so you're going to ask someone why they do something and then you're going to prohibit them. So you can say, for example, لماذا تأكل اللحم في الصباح? Why do you eat meat in the morning? لا تأكل اللحم في الصباح. Don't eat meat in the morning. Okay? Why we do this? Because we want you to practice both. The negation and the prohibition at the same time. Right? So تأكل would have a ضمة. لا تأكلي or تأكل with the sukoon is the negation, the la nahi that we've done. You can also negate that someone does a certain action at a certain time or place. Okay? Like you can say, for example, محمد لا ينام بعد الفجر. Okay, so practice both. Practice with sentences where you prohibit someone of doing something, and practice sentences where you negate someone has actually done something. One thing that I wanted to add that's really important, which is we know how to prohibit someone, a male. We say لا تأكل with a sukoon. But how do you prohibit a female? Like, how do you say to Fatima, don't eat? Now, Fatima, when you address her and you want to tell her that she's eating, you would say تأكلين. Right? تأكلين. So how would you say don't eat? You say لا تأكلي. You get rid of the noon at the end. Just want you to know that for the workshop, that when it comes to prohibiting, especially the sisters, and you're addressing one of your fellow sisters, don't say لا تأكل اللحم. Say to her لا تأكلي اللحم. Okay? And then finally, we have the random image and word ones. This one's similar to the one we've done last time. Let me show you this one quickly, which I'm created today. This one's very similar like we've just mentioned, which is لماذا plus a verb. Like for example, لماذا تأكل. Okay, and I said تأكل because the object is the judge. So say something that is suitable to the judge. Don't say لماذا تشرب الدجاج. Okay, it's crazy. Okay, so لماذا تأكل الدجاج في المطعم. Okay, why do you eat chicken at the restaurant? Okay, then prohibit them. لا تأكل الدجاج في المطعم. Okay, now I made a mistake. Why did I make a mistake? Because you have to say after that, you have to address the person. يا خولة. خولة is a female name. Why did I add يا خولة at the end? So that you can use the masculine and the feminine verb over here. Okay? So لماذا تأكلين. So you have literally, before you even attempt to make your sentence, you have to look at the last word over here. Are you addressing a male or female? Okay, here we're addressing a female. So I'm going to apply that to my sentence. Okay, accordingly. I'm going to say لماذا تأكلين الدجاج في المطعم. I'm not going to say لماذا تأكل الدجاج في المطعم. And then at the end, يا خولة. Doesn't make sense. So لماذا تأكلين الدجاج في المطعم. لا تأكل الدجاج في المطعم يا خولة. Okay? It sounds a bit difficult, I know, but that's the point. I mean, I always ask the students in class, do you want to do the exercise in the book or you want to do this? Most of the time, they prefer this. Why? Because the exercise in the book, they're too easy. Okay? So those of you that struggle with this, you can do the exercise in the book. Those that want to challenge themselves, then I advise you with this exercise. Then obviously, the teacher will spin and come up with new words. So here we have لماذا عنب and we have خليلة عن. So now we're addressing a male. So I would say, for example, لماذا تأكل العنب بعد الفجر؟ لا تأكل العنب بعد الفجر يا خليل. Should have high carbohydrate foods in the morning. Okay? لماذا تأكل العنب بعد الفجر؟ لا تأكل العنب بعد الفجر يا خليل. طيب. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد. Are there any questions before we break up for the workshop? Okay, so the exam you said was good. Some of you said easy. Alhamdulillah. I'm not confident about what I know, so doubted myself. I didn't try hard enough in tackling the sentence correction. No problem. Inshallah, the confidence will come. Keep on going, inshallah, and the confidence will come. And that's really what the test is about. It's not, I all know that you might know the information, but unless you know it 100%, look, if you're not confident enough to correct the sentence in an exam, while you have a lot of time to think. Now imagine now when you want to speak to someone. Live, face to face. That's going to need a much higher level of confidence. So I'm building you up, inshallah, your confidence to feel confident about what you know so that you feel confident, inshallah ta'ala, to have that conversation with an Arab speaker without being afraid that you're going to make major mistakes, inshallah. And even getting used to being corrected anyway. That itself is a learning process itself. Changing your mindset, my dear brothers and sisters, such that you see mistakes as learning opportunities. Wallahi, if that's the only thing you take out of this course, that's a lifelong skill that you will benefit from in whatever you're going to learn. Okay? So, alhamdulillah, appreciate that, these mistakes that you're making, they are learning opportunities. You're learning from them. And like we said many times before, the famous saying, two people never learn, the shy one and the arrogant one. And we mentioned why they never learn. Why do they never learn? Because they've got one thing in common, which is they both never make mistakes. The arrogant one thinks that he knows it, he never gives it a try. The shy one is afraid of making a mistake. That's what they have in common, and that's why they don't learn. I want to argue that the level at which you learn is equal to the amount of mistakes that you make and that you learn from. Okay? So if you want to have a correlation, some kind of correlation, know if you're growing, if you're learning or not, look at how many mistakes that you make that are being corrected. The more mistakes that you make that are being corrected, the more that you're learning. Inshallah. Barakallah feekum. طيب. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If there are no questions,